Okay, Matt, the NHL released its All-Star Game lineups, and we're going to see Drake Batherson represent the Ottawa Senators. He gets his first nod to go to the All-Star Game. It's tough to argue anybody else going in his place at this point. Would you not agree?
I would agree. I mean, for me, he's the clear-cut choice from this group in Ottawa, and his plays dictated that. Wally, his numbers are great. He's putting up some solid points, despite not being on maybe the best team right now. But I think you watch him play. He's got some swagger. He's very confident. He makes everybody better around him. We've seen what this group looks like when he's not in that lineup. So no, I'm happy for him. Really good ambassador for this team too. He's a funny guy off the ice, very well spoken. So he'll be a good representative for the Ottawa Senators.
So I'm assuming you watched the video the Ottawa Senators put out, him being mic'd up at practice. Have you ever in your life heard of a player during practice talk with that much hockey lingo?
And I think, normally I cringe when guys try to talk that way, the hockey boy talk, which I never kind of took hold of, but he's from out East. He's got a bit of that accent, Wally. He kind of gets a pass. I believe it or not, I'll give him a pass. And it was so funny. I mean, I think the Sens are doing a good job with that. You post a bunch of stuff, personable stuff, see their personality. And there was no exception there with Drake Batherson for that practice. And I couldn't get over, Wally, how much he was talking. For me, that was the biggest thing. It's like you can drop a couple lines, but he was chatting away with everybody that whole practice. So it just goes to show you how much the kid loves the game. And, that's contagious.
You have to sense that that's exactly how he talks all the time, because it's tough to make that up for like a 4-minute stretch all the time. So you got to, I think that he's basically sitting at home going, "Hey guys, can you get me a biscuit from the top shelf or something?" Like you just know that he's trying to come up with all this lingo. The Pocky stuff is outstanding.
The Pocky, there were some solid one-liners, and some of them were brand new that I'd never heard before. So I was getting a chuckle. He had me smiling when I was watching the video.
Look, I'm a Maritimer, and I still haven't heard half of that stuff. So I don't know what's going on in Cape Breton, but he's nailed it, whatever it is. I want to point out
it's a hybrid though, Wally.
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry,
it's wild. He went to the 2019 AHL All-Star Game, was an All-Star MVP at that one. I think he's going to have a lot of fun at this one, and we'll see what happens on the ice. But something that needs to be pointed out, I think I looked up the other night from his draft class, which was 2017. He sits tied for 4th overall in points per game. So Cale Makar is first, almost at a point per game. Jason Robertson, Elias Pettersson. And then it's Drake Batherson at 0.66 points per game. Like he's the only one in the top 23 in scoring from that draft class outside the first 2 rounds. He's put up great numbers. Yeah. He's been a huge find, and you can see his game completely transition, I think, this year as he continues to grow and fill out into I guess his adult man body, if you will.
Yeah, no. And I love that you brought that up, Wally, because he's progressing still. I don't think he's near his peak. And so, that little distance you mentioned, his draft class right there, I can see him leapfrog a couple of those players eventually at some point, depending on, of course, his line mates and all that. But, you've seen some great big strides from him this season. And for me, it's his confidence. I mean, I'm watching him out there. You can tell he's a bona fide NHL player. He's very confident in his game, and not in an arrogant way, in the best ways, right? And that's, as I mentioned earlier, very contagious throughout the group. When you have that kind of attitude that you're bringing to the rink on a daily basis, coaches love it because it brings the group up.
I just don't know how you don't cheer for him, regardless of how he plays on the ice. Just his personality alone makes you kind of gravitate towards him. And now I'm hearing there's not enough Drake Batherson jerseys in the Sens store for people to buy. They're trying to make them up now. You can tell that he's going to be a star on this team for a while. Have you been to any All-Star games?
Are you trying to embarrass me right now?
No, I've never played in one. It's okay. You can. I haven't even played in a minor hockey league All-Star game.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Well, I played my last year. I played in the Ontario Hockey League All-Star game. And I still remember playing physical with a couple players because I didn't know what to do in the All-Star game. And I heard about it in the intermission. Some of the guys were like, "Hey, like so-and-so wasn't really happy with, whatever you were doing." And I'm not going to name drop right now, but that was sort of like, I was in a flux, right? Because I'm here in this game. I'm not there for my skill set. So I'm thinking, okay, what am I supposed to do? And of course, there's scouts in the stands at an All-Star game, which to me was unfair as well. So I'm like trying to play physical. I'm like squeezing guys off on the walls. And, but it was a cool experience because there's a lot of really good players that year. That was the NHL lockout year. So you had all the guys, all the usual suspects that were up in the NHL that were back, and I was in good company. I felt good about it.
So Marc Methot can't turn it off, eh?
No, yeah, go figure. If anybody knows me, that fits the pattern to a T. So that's okay. It was a blast. Never again was I in that kind of company, though. It was a one-off.
If you would have hip checked someone at the All-Star game, you would have been an MVP. There's no doubt in my mind. People would have loved it. But have you watched the CHL prospects game? There's been some serious injuries. And I think Matt Cook put someone into the boards, right, and ended up, I think he broke a bone or something. Like, is that a whole different world? Is that CHL prospects game because of what's on the line?
Yeah, you have all these players that, and it's no fault of their own, right? You have 100 scouts up in the stands, and you know who they are. They're all these, like, for those who don't go to a lot of OHL games or prospect games in general, you have like rows, Wally, as you've, I'm sure, seen millions of times, where all these guys with clipboards are just sitting there. You know, they're scouts. They're all separated by about 2 seats, kind of keeping to themselves. And as a player, you can't help but look up and notice them there. And I noticed that all the time when we were playing regular season games, but those top prospect games, especially. So I am not surprised that the temperature gets raised because they're all just trying to prove themselves.
Yeah, it's interesting. One more point. You played with a broken jaw, and now we know Connor Brown is going to be out of the lineup after he played in the last game, scoring a goal and an assist with a broken jaw, and he had a beautiful goal on a breakaway. Right. Explain to me what it's like to have that kind of injury.
It's not pleasant. I think as far as recovery goes, I mean, I've had some painful stuff. My finger was brittle because of the nerve endings, and I've had back issues. But with the broken jaw, like I don't know if his is a mandibular, like in 2 spots, but mine was, and I was wired shut for almost 2 months. So or maybe that was a month and a half. So, you know, you're starting off thinking, okay, it's fine. My mouth is shut, but I'll have some fruit shakes or I'll blend some smoothies. But eventually you just start craving salts and savory foods, but you can't eat anything. So it got to the point where I was using chicken broth and like chicken nuggets, anything from McDonald's, like soups. And I lost like 20 pounds, I think at least 20 pounds in like the first 3 weeks. It was crazy. And then eventually you come back and you got to wear the fishbowl, right? The full face shield. He's going to have to do that at some point, but it comes down to the severity of his fracture in the break. So I'm curious to hear the news from that. But if it's just in one spot and it's not displaced, his recovery time will be a lot shorter.
I have a picture of you from the world. I think it's the World Championships where you're wearing a visor and a jaw protector. Like it's beautiful picture. Is that from the same?
I was going around. I remember that. There were some shifts like Dion and I. We were playing against Belarus, I think, and they were trying to get a little chippy with us. And I'm running around with my face shield, 2-handing guys like a lumberjack everywhere. Dion was my partner, and Dion's at net front slashing guys too. And these poor players don't know what to do. And I've got this whole shield on, but yeah, it was, it's a challenge because as a player, you're so used to coming off the ice and wiping down your face from all the sweat. And I could never do that, right? I have this big fishbowl on my head and I'm just dealing with all the ricochet of the sweat. And like I said, it's not pleasant. I don't wish that upon anybody. I just hope that it's not that severe for Brown, but we'll see.
That picture was rather jarring.
Oh, geez. Yeah. You can't help it. You just can't help it. You had to do that. You just ruined my morning with that, by the way.